What is up, everybody? This is Marshall Lee of DonkeyJawProjects.com, and today we got another one for you. We're gonna be lurking and creeping and trying to find out what haunts the internet. Apparently, Twitter is haunted at the moment. It's not working very well. But not only that, there's a trend. There's a festering trend in the indie comic scene these days, and in some ways it's a little creepy, but in other ways it's kind of awesome too. So none other today I have none other than Mr. Robert Geronimo to help me talk about these trends. How you doing, man?
I'm happy to be here, Marsh. Awesome seeing you again.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to have you on again. So if anybody doesn't know already, let people know who you are and where they can find you.
Oh yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Geronimo Draws, and I work on a little book called Blood Realm that's published by Alterna Comics, and currently have an IndieGoGo running with a new horror book. It's a slasher book called Wirehead.
Hmm. Yeah, and we'll definitely be talking about that today. And I definitely suggest everybody. I mean, if you're interested in any kind of horror stuff, especially old thrasher films and stuff, like
Mhm.
this is gonna be right up your alley.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna get into that. I'm just trying to get the link. Actually, I want to throw that in the actual
The chat.
chat here.
Okay. Sure.
um, so yeah, I mean, let's see. Where did I want to kind of, this is the thing. I saw your thing was coming out for you've been
Mhm.
kind of talking about it for a while. And also throughout this year, I noticed like Ed Piskor, he's working on something pretty horrific at the moment.
Mhm.
There's other people. I know you've been on my buddy Fue slash, also known as Lucifer Storm.
Oh yeah.
You've been on his channel, and obviously he's got a pretty cool comic that he's
Mhm.
coming out that is still in kind of in that terror realm. And
Sure.
there's been other ones. City of Rock kind of fits that a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
And just I've noticed it's been a little bit even on the like let's play around with having a little bit of gore in there. So
Yeah.
some people are more than playing around.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but, but it's something that I don't typically see unless you go back to like old EC comics and pre-code horror
Yes.
comics.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of cool to
Mhm.
see. It's funny because I'm not always the Jason, the stuff like that was not something I watched as a kid, but it was because I
Mhm.
was scared.
Right. Right. Right.
But then you know, at the same time, I've grown to love horror movies. So I don't know. It's an interesting thing, but it's not necessarily my first go-to thing. But as I keep hearing about everybody doing these things, I'm like, okay, I'm kind of into it. And I think it's
It's
a
contagious.
trend. Like, obviously, it's coming up to Halloween, and you're
Sure.
gonna see stuff like this. But to me, I feel like it's almost like a little bit of a trend in the indie comic scene right now that
Definitely.
is kind of maybe transcends, just the season, because I
Mhm.
feel like it's been building up, kind of how almost like the zombie thing kind of
Yes.
became a trend.
Mhm.
Do you feel like you're seeing the same thing?
Absolutely. I think we're totally witnessing a trend, but a trend that's building higher and higher. I think it really has to do with today's climate, political
Mm,
climate, the pandemic, everything. I think people are just frustrated, especially frustrated with the industry as well. So,
mm,
making horror comics is cathartic. And just like EC comics, they made those comics because they were, against the status quo. And that's what I would basically say the indie comics today are, especially on IndieGoGo. They're against the status quo. They're taking bigger risks. You look at EC comics in the 1950s, no one made a horror comic. No one even dreamed of doing anything like that. And they were selling like gangbusters, like beyond what they possibly could have expected.
mm,
So, I think that's what's happening here again is that, you know, you look at even with slasher films in the 70s, post Vietnam era, they were very gruesome. They were brutal because people were seeing news for the real, for what it really was in terms of like what the war looked like. It wasn't glorified. So it's just all of this aggression and anger was really poured out into these films. And then the post 9/11 films, you had, what do they call torture porn? So there is a trend here, and I think it's happening again. And I'm really excited to be a part of it because I love this stuff.
That's awesome. Now, do you feel like you kind of anticipated this trend and rode the wave, or it's just kind of coincidence, or
I mean, it's I got into horror when I was young, and I always loved it, but I didn't think, I could make I could get published by doing horror because I thought, well,
Mhm.
everyone's done horror, and that what hasn't been done already. So I was doing children's books and stuff, and then funny, it's what happens is you kind of go back to the thing that got you interested in making art in the first place. So I went back to horror, and then Blood Realm was the book that got published, and I love fantasy, so let me mix a little horror element in there. And then that did very well. And I said, you know what? I always wanted to do a slasher. And then I see the time that we're living in. I was like, that slasher story, I think, it's the right time right now with what's
Right?
going on.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, and I think there is, definitely some catharsis. It's interesting because, it's weird because like there is something like I don't want to say easy,
Hmm.
but like there is like a release, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because whenever I've kind of delved into the darker side of things with my creativity,
Hmm.
it just flows, and it's not that I'm like I don't think I'm a super dark person, you know?
Right.
I've
Right.
even tried I've said this before, I've tried to do, like, those, like, angry rants on YouTube and stuff
Can't
before,
do
and I can't. I'm like, I'm too happy and smiley, like, it just
it.
doesn't work. But
Hey,
there
that's
is
all
a
right.
side of me, like, when I was doing, doing more hip hop music and stuff, like, I was, amongst my friends, I was known for being able to really hit you with, like, a crazy dark,
Mm,
kinda beat or whatever, or, I don't know,
yeah.
some of my kind of more darker type of like rhymes and music and all that stuff just hit more. For some reason, I was able to just play in that realm. I I have I have done it actually a little bit in comics, but again, it was almost like more of a children's type of thing. Actually, I
Mm.
could pull it off the wall right here.
Oh, that's
Speaking about
cool.
EC Comics, let's see, let me make my thingy bigger. I did this years ago. Um,
Oh, awesome.
this cover, and the actual comic is black and white. It's not, it's different, but this one is from I think, yeah, it's from Tales from the Crypt, number 35's Jack Davis cover. He's got like a
Mm,
werewolf here instead, and so it's definitely kind of playing off of that exact cover. And yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of fun with this thing.
that's awesome.
Um, Trying to make it look old too, that was a blast
Yeah,
and took a lot of time and a lot of work to do that. But it was fun. Um,
that's so
and
cool.
and so like I can play in that realm, maybe
Right.
not like live because I'm too jokey or whatever, but
Right.
but anyways, that being said, I don't know why I'm talking so much about the things I've done. Um,
Don't be silly.
but it's interesting. The point I really wanted to make was it's just interesting that how things can flow when you kind of dive into that. And I mean, honestly, even with Blood
Mhm.
Realm, like
Sure.
it is kind of it's like fantasy, but it's really got a horror edge to it. Like
Oh, yeah, for
maybe
sure.
it's more horror than fantasy. I don't even know.
I know. I would say so. I would say so. I feel like each volume progressively, particularly the second volume, definitely gets much darker and has this, this dungeon crawl horror feel to it. Because each guys are getting picked off by the creatures. So there certainly is that element to the second volume.
Yeah, totally. Now, did you feel like, as opposed to other projects you've worked on, like you said, you were working on kids stuff and all that, did you feel
Right.
like these kind of things flow more or?
Yes. Yeah.
Mm,
Definitely. Uh, horror is just natural to me. I love it. I've always loved it as a kid, and it's funny because, like I said, I didn't think I would ever get published doing horror because I just thought everything's been done, or my style, isn't marketable. But it took me a long time to finally realize that there's a style and there's a market for everything. You just have to find out where those people are.
Yeah, totally. I mean, and it's kind of odd that horror kind of took kind of the background for so long. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's been like rises and falls to a certain degree, but like it's so popular. It's so like it's
yeah.
definitely a genre like in movies that a lot of people are into. And
Oh yeah.
there's definitely, if there's anything that has a cult following, it would be the
Oh
horror
yeah.
genre. So I'm kind of surprised that we haven't had more trends going more that way. But yeah, like you said, maybe it's a kind of a sign of the times, and
Yeah.
we're getting some stuff out here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the thing. I feel like, the horror stuff kind of reflects what's going on. That's how it kind of evolved over time. But when you look at like slashers in general, like first it was like this who done it mystery. Who is the killer? And then it went to like, you know, like what's his name? Michael Myers.
Right.
He's now you took the horror to your neighborhood. Right?
Mm.
The guy next door, you don't even know who this guy is. He's a human. Well, supposedly a human. I don't know what they haven't really figured out what he is apparently in the films, but and then you go to Freddy Krueger, where now you have this supernatural element to it, where now he haunts your dreams. And then when they did all of the slasher stuff, they started to get campy with it. So
Mhm.
it's funny because it became a parody of itself until Scream. So it's like constantly evolving.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Um, and let's see. We have some comments here. I'm checking in here.
Sure.
Uh, oh, the whole crew has joined us once again. So
Oh,
again, we
hello,
have
the
a
whole crew.
whole crew
Yeah,
here.
that's all you need.
Fogbreaker Studio says, "What's up, y'all?"
What's up?
Fogbreaker, also known as Jason. Actually,
Mhm.
I don't know if you're aware or not. Him and my buddy Ronnie Gunther,
Mhm.
they do a show about horror comics, and they actually reviewed
Oh.
your Blood Realm at
Oh,
one point.
yes. Yes, I did see that. That's a Crimson Owl, right?
Yes, Crimson
Yes,
Owl
I did see
Studios.
that.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep, those
awesome.
those are my good buddies. So one half of them is in the house.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
Dave Hingley's here. What's up, dude?
Hey, Dave.
My buddy Peter Palmiotti.
Hey, Peter.
Han is in here,
Uh-huh.
excited to be here. Well, we're excited that you're here.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure. Let's see. The whole crew says, I just started reading a series called Teether. Have you ever heard of it?
No, sounds cool, though. Is it a comic or is it a book?
Yeah, I'm curious,
Yeah,
as well. It sounds that's a creepy title.
it definitely is. Definitely is. Yeah, I'm really excited about, Wirehead because now I get to really, like, go all out with the slasher genre.
Yeah,
That's one of my favorites, so it's like my spin on it, but it also has, like, a sci-fi element to it because I think the sci-fi aesthetic of the '80s was just so damn cool, so I
yeah.
wanted to bring that into it as well.
Hmm, interesting. Oh, okay, so maybe, what particularly sci-fi wise are you thinking of? Like, maybe RoboCop, or like, let's
Exactly.
see, what else is there? I don't know why
Terminator.
I'm, like, brain farting some of these.
Terminator, the first one, which in
Yeah,
essence is kind of like a slasher film because
it
he's
is a little horror-y, I
right.
guess, yeah,
He's
definitely.
knocking off one by one all of the Sarah Connors.
Mhm.
So, he's hunting them. So there's totally a vibe to that.
Hunt. That's cool. Yeah, I like that. Um, Han says, "It's hard to capture gore in a panel." Did you find
Well,
that? Well, actually, you didn't do the art for
no,
this
it's
one, but
actually, yeah, I have a friend of mine who's doing the artwork, Michael O'Shea. He's doing a
yeah.
phenomenal job. I was gonna illustrate this, but I've just been so swamped with Blood Realm that I'm like, "I'm gonna have a nervous breakdown if I do this." So, but he was a former student of mine, and he's ready to go, and, I trust him, and I've been loving what he's been doing, so he's ready to
Oh,
do
yeah.
this. He's ready.
Yeah, everything I've seen is just absolutely amazing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
You should show him the gore part because he says you can't. It's hard to illustrate gore, but that scene that Mike does with the head pop,
yes.
it's a
Yeah,
crazy shot.
we're gonna get over there in a sec. And I like this one from Jason, also known as Fogbreaker. Horror at its true scariest is a relatable escape.
Yes, definitely. And that's something I had to like think about when I was writing because I was like, I can't stand when characters make dumb decisions, or it's like no one would do that. So I made it very. It was a conscious decision as I wrote that. Okay, every decision these characters make is going to seem like it's believable. Like, okay, I would do that.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's check in with the campaign here and see exactly what he's talking about here with this. And you were talking about the I like this kind of mixing the sci-fi with horror, and I thought that
Mhm.
was interesting because this is not the first time you've mixed sci-fi with another genre.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
Seems like a trend
it is a
within a
trend.
trend.
It's my 2 favorite things. I don't know. I feel like when they're mixed together, I love it. I personally, I don't know how people feel about this, but I love Jason X. I think Jason X is awesome. I saw that in the theaters and I loved it. And I guess that was kind of the early beginnings of my inspiration for Wirehead, this cybernetic terror, you know.
Awesome. Well, tell people a little bit about this story as we kind of scroll down here.
Sure, yeah. It's like I said, it's a slasher horror, and it's an homage to all of those type of films from the 80s and even the 70s and then early 90s. And
Mhm,
it follows this group of teenagers. They're unsuspecting teenagers in the Pocono Mountains that are terrorized by this cybernetic creature. And you got a lot of uh, good kills. You got a body count. You have a
mhm,
monstrous stalker, but it gets into like a little bit of like aliens with his corporations, and it's really interesting because I wanted to give a cool backstory to Wirehead. And I think that's what makes a good slasher and a good stalker or a good villain.
mhm,
Who is this guy? Where'd he
mm,
come from? So that I had a lot of fun doing. And the book is black and white because, like we were talking about EC Comics, we went for a black and white EC Comics vibe. I love the way Michael draws his figures because they look like they belong in Archie, but the stuff that happens to them is so horrific that it's like there's this like this kind of juxtaposition. But I love his black and whites, and it was originally all in color. And
oh.
it wasn't until I showed Peter, accidentally showed him the black and whites, and he was like, "These are black and whites." I was like, "Yeah, yeah. Let me send you the color." He was like, "No, no, no. This needs to be in black and white." There you go. So there's your shot. So so stuff happens to these to these unsuspecting teens
It's pretty
in the woods.
satisfying.
Does that feel good? Right?
If you want a real feel good book, check out Wirehead.
Yeah, it makes you feel good. It's therapeutic.
That's
And
funny.
yeah, I love the way he drew this car. It takes place in the late 90s, by the way, this story.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
I love that
Wow,
palette right there.
so what looks like almost a possible main character looks like right in the beginning, maybe that's him who gets his head squished.
Maybe, don't wanna spoil. But yeah, you have to have those moments where you don't expect it coming. We have great prints. I wanted to get some of my favorite artists at Alterna to do these prints for Wired, and this is Christian Rossi. He does Voidwalker. Absolutely
Yeah,
love his work. He nailed the design.
so cool.
Yeah, that's Wirehead, and he got the Victorian Frankenstein-like coat. I wanted to
Yep,
have that classic movie monster feel mixed with a modern take.
nice.
Yeah,
That's
the
awesome.
lightning in the back.
I know, it's so
Oh,
cool.
he did a great job.
Yours is really cool too. I like
Oh,
how
yeah.
I was
Thank you.
looking at this. I've seen this image many times, but I didn't realize the bottom part. You totally made it like a movie poster, which I
Yeah,
thought was really cool.
thank you. Yeah, this one was mine. This is all part of the featured perk and the print pack.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
obviously, like in the Blood Realm style. And
Yeah.
then this one is Ryan Wynn, and he's in the chat. Ryan did a
What's up, Ryan?
killer, uh, print
He
for
did
Waterhead.
he did a killer.
Killer.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely love his print. So his is exclusive to the featured perk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Then
so
we have
cool.
I have a very metal looking T-shirt.
I love the t-shirt. I love the
Oh, thank you.
font too. Like you definitely, I think it makes me feel like maybe you're a fan of Stranger Things
Of
and how
course.
they really brought it back to those old like
Yeah,
novels, like Stephen King novel type of fonts
absolutely.
and stuff.
I have to credit uh, Peter. He did the logo. He did a killer job. I was telling him what I needed, and he nailed it. And this is a trading card. So in the
This is
back,
cool.
yeah, the back is going to have kill stats. This one I did. I wanted to make it look very like 90s, with the
That's
coloring. So you have like a little bit of a bio, and like I said, kill stats in the back.
I didn't know that you did this one. It's interesting because now that you say it, it does look like your style, but it's surprisingly, I wasn't sure that this
Yeah,
was yours at first. Maybe it's because there's more than one color in it.
I think that's it. I was going to say, I think it's the colors. Yeah. So I can do multiple colors, folks.
It is a possibility. Well,
Yes.
it looks great.
Thank you.
Um,
And then we have the commission gallery. So if people want me to go full out and do a painted piece of a character, I have that up there, samples of that. And then Michael's work at
awesome.
the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Yeah, so I mean, I'm definitely gonna back this thing. I like that T-shirt too. Like
Oh, thank you, brother.
I'm still trying to decide what should I get. I kind of like the prints. I like the T-shirts too. Like I
Yeah.
don't
Thank
know.
you. We have add-ons. That's the beauty thing I love about IndieGoGo is that I can make all of the items an add-on. So if you want to get one thing, you can add other stuff onto your order. I think is so cool. That is such a great thing to do.
Yeah, totally, totally. Awesome. Well, yeah, this is gonna be really cool. Everybody should definitely check this out. I'm gonna once again the link is in the description, but I will throw it into the chat once again,
Awesome. Thank you.
and we'll continue. We'll continue with the broadcast.
Yeah.
So let's see. All right. So let's see. We had this one up here, how it's so hard to capture gore in a panel, and I put it back up because it has to do with a question I was thinking is, you know, in comics, it can be a little difficult to bring across certain things. Like
Sure.
you don't have the accompaniment of music. The timing is a tough thing to control.
Oh yeah.
Um, how and all those things really play in movies to the scare factor. But my
Yes.
question is, how do you scare somebody in a comic?
Sure. I guess the way to do it is um, is by enjoying the characters and liking the characters. So if you like the character, and when the character goes through something really horrific, you feel it too in a way. Or if you identify with a character because you're like, this is what I would do. Out of all the characters, I would react like that. And when you
Mm,
see that character get impaled, then you're like, oh damn, no. Then you feel like that's you because that's the character you were rooting for, and that you thought, all right, everything that character's doing, I would do in this situation. But when
mm.
that character gets, like I said, either a head pop or impaled, suddenly you're like, oh damn. So now you feel really helpless. So
Wow.
it's that kind of vibe, I think, with comics is that you have to really have characters that you can relate to, you know,
Mhm.
because I think that's the problem with that happened with later slashers is that you didn't it was all about the kills, all about the gore, but it felt hollow, it felt lifeless. So with Wirehead and with comics, I think you really have to have that connection with the characters. It's really key, and I think it being in black and white helps it because you kind of left a little bit more to your imagination. Because when things are very bright and colorful, it doesn't really, it looks cartoonish. But when it's something about black and white, even
Mm,
when you look at the work of Junji Ito, who's an incredible horror manga artist, he can horrify with line.
mm.
So, and it's all black and white. So it's possible. It's
Yeah,
just it's less is more, I think, when it comes to horror and comics.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I think Junji Ito might be one of the ones that once again, Fogbreaker and Crimson Owls comics uh, looked at some of their stuff, or his stuff, and
Mhm.
and Ronnie is now here as well.
Oh, awesome.
So that being said, yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street was inspired by a true story.
Yeah, it was.
Jason says that's interesting because it's such a weird, like, almost goofy story, you know,
Right. I know.
even though it's like a horror story. But I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really creepy when you think about it.
I guess so. Like, I wonder what I'm curious now. Like, I'll have to talk to Jason about it. Like, I wonder what the true story was, because obviously it wasn't like, somebody coming into people's dreams and terrorizing them necessarily.
Right, right, sure.
Speaking about that, it's funny. This morning, waking up, I totally had like a dream, and I wrote it down, and I'm like, and I don't have dreams very often, and I definitely don't write them down ever.
Mhm.
But it was one of those things where I'm like, this is like the coolest metaphor ever. Like, and I'm like, I have to write this down because this could become a comic. Do you
Yeah.
ever have any inspiration from dreams?
Oh, yeah. Just about most of my stuff is from dreams.
Really?
Uh, oh, yeah, especially, horror stuff all the time. I have a notebook just filled with just weird things I dreamt up, and I write it down. Um, I'm hoping, with if Wirehead is successful, I want to start a slasher verse or a horror series with featuring a new monster, and just about all of them are from night terrors that I had when I woke up in the
Mm,
middle of the night, and I would just write it down.
wow.
I think
Well,
I'm I think I'm haunted.
I don't know whether to be happy for you, or wanna help or something.
Yeah, I know. Help me, please.
Is that like a thing though? Like, do you have a hard time sleeping because of this, or is this just
I have a hard time sleeping for different reasons because my brain doesn't shut off. It doesn't shut up
yeah.
either. Like it's constantly like, here's an idea on how you could fix that panel. It's like, no, not right now. I need to sleep. Terrible. We'll
Yeah.
talk about it tomorrow. And then there's some nights where I just wake up like just sweating, and I don't know if they're real encounters, but sometimes I just have very vivid encounters with whatever the hell they are, and I just draw them and write them down.
Wow. Uh,
Hopefully I don't see into another dimension, because then we're screwed if they're really lingering there.
yes, please. Please let let Robert's dreams not be real.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's cool though that you're gonna be able to translate those into a story. So that you said that's for a whole different idea though, correct?
Right, so, like I said, w once if Wirehead is successful, which I hope it is, then I'm gonna move on to the next character. So, a different monster, different slasher every October. So, the goal is to hopefully do an IndieGoGo every October for a brand new horror book. But
Oh, okay. So this would maybe be the first of
this
them?
would be the first of, yeah. So, I
Oh,
have
okay.
plans. It's just, I don't like to announce that stuff because
Right.
only well, or say it with such certainty, because I hate when movie studios, their movie comes out, and before it even comes out, they're like, "Oh, it's gonna be a trilogy," and it's like, "Well, let us decide. The movie's not even out yet," you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So, speaking about that, now Wirehead is this first of all, is this something that is going to be picked up by Alterna, or we don't know, and also is this something that you plan to continue this specific story beyond this graphic novel?
So, Peter and I are definitely in talks of it being an alternate title.
Mm.
We haven't announced anything officially because we wanna see how the Indiegogo goes, but, uh, we've talked about it. We have some plans, and we're going back and forth on some really cool ideas for it. So I I I'm really excited if it all comes to fruition, but obviously it all depends on the backers and making the
Right.
project happen. So yeah, there's great plans for it, and I like to make this like a slasher universe. And when I should have clarified that this character, this universe would exist with the others. So kind of like how Frankenstein met the Wolfman and stuff like that.
Hmm.
It's like that. They're all connected, but
That's cool.
yeah, subtly.
Right. That's interesting. I mean, that makes it even more intriguing in my mind.
Yeah,
And something that's cool too is like, I mean, just the name Wirehead is like it just really just makes you automatically think of slasher movies.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I guess Pinhead, kind of
sure.
you can kind of think of that, but like there's that, and then I don't know, like you've created now. I don't know if you did the character design or not, but you've
I did.
definitely created a character that is highly like fan artable. Like I want
Yeah.
to draw this character. You know what I mean?
I had, it's funny. It's funny you say that because uh, uh, I don't know if you know Michael Odom. He's on Twitter, and
Okay.
he did a fan art piece because he loved the design so much. He sent me the piece, and I was like, Michael, can I put this in the campaign as a stretch goal because it is awesome. So I had Nick Welch, who was a colorist over at Alterna. He colored it. We're not ready to reveal it yet because we have to reach at least 150 backers.
Right.
But yeah, I've had everyone's been sketching this guy, and I love it. It's so cool.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine you've gotten a lot of fan art for Blood Realm as well.
I did, but believe it or not, more so for Wirehead so far.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. I don't know how Adrod Jr. Maybe that's how you say it. But
Ryan
they
Otley.
they
Yeah.
say Ryan Otley does some amazing gore and Invincible, and that's a
Yeah,
great point. Like I would have never connected that right now
it's
because I'm
true.
thinking of horror, but that's more of a superhero comic.
Gruesome.
But yes, gore. He is good at gore. Like
He
holy
is.
crap.
Yeah, and see, that's why color is so important because the coloring in that is the right palette for it, because I
Mm,
feel like some colorists, they overly paint, and it just kind of kills the line work and stuff.
mm.
So, it's really well done.
Stinch is in here. He says, "I feel you, Geronimo. I can't sleep either because the paralysis demons want to talk to me about comics."
Every damn time, Stinch, every damn time.
Nice. Let's see. Oh, we might actually be close to caught up, which is cool. So yeah, I guess I'm curious too, is like obviously, this flowed quickly out of just a love for the genre and like
Yeah.
you said before. I'm just curious a little bit about the process of creating it and writing it and just how it all kind of came to fruition. I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Sure. This was actually very different from how I work usually. I always work kind of in like a Marvel method when I work on my own book, like with Blood Realm.
Hmm.
So I kind of develop the story, and then I develop the characters, and then I draw it, and then I write the dialogue and the captions. Unless there's specific, dialogue or lines I want, I'll have that ahead of time. But I kind of want the words to serve the art, not the other way around with Blood Realm. So it's different with this because now I was like, all right, I can't illustrate this. I'm too swamped, and I realized like, oh man, I'm gonna have to write a script out to do this.
Hmm.
So it was first we tried the Marvel method, him and I, and it didn't work as well because I guess I have a certain vision for things,
Hmm.
so it was easier for me to kind of explain the certain shots, certain scenes, and this way that was a good like kind of jumping off point for Michael to go off and do his storytelling thing. So that's initially how it worked out. I had this story itself, the Wirehead story, started out as a short story I wrote years ago. I always used to love
Oh, okay.
write little short horror stories, like 8 pages, 5 pages, and I always wanted to build on it. So doing it as a comic and or expanding upon it was a big deal.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like you're sorry, I'm looking down
Oh,
because I'm trying to check Twitter.
let's see if it worked.
It looks like your thing went through unless you just did that.
It went
And I
through.
wonder if mine apparently if anybody who's here now who didn't hear the beginning, like I think Twitter got haunted for a little bit. Maybe we just overwhelmed it with the anticipation of Wirehead, but I'm trying to see if mine went up. It doesn't look like it did.
Mine didn't go up, not on my end.
Yeah, I see it. Maybe. Well, I will retweet yours, and it looks like a lot of people. Oh no, you know what? That's an old one. Never mind.
I think
Well, I
that's the
just
older one. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, never mind. Let me see if I can try to post this again real quick, because people need to know about this book. Like seriously.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I know it's that's the one thing that's freaking me out, with IndieGoGo. Once you hit that launch button, I'm like, oh my God. I was like, I got to get this out there and tell people to back it. It's like so stressful.
Yeah, it is stressful, and I mean, I've been involved in like Kickstarters and stuff. I did a Kickstarter way back in the olden days, when it first came out for music.
Mhm.
But you know, it's it's about that time where I finally put out a real project, and I want to go through Indiegogo. Um, and a lot of people have told me they're like, you're gonna do so good. You already got a following, you got YouTube and stuff, and I'm like, you know what? You really never know. Like you could have
Mhm.
all kinds of following, but you just don't know if people are gonna actually be like, yeah, I want to put down money on a project.
Yeah.
So it's I definitely get, it's nerve wracking.
Oh, it's crazy. It's really crazy because you're promoting it, you're the build up for it. But I believe in the project, and I really think if people are into horror, they're really gonna enjoy it. It's just you can't do it without their support. You need their backing. But I
Yeah,
think it's fun because in a way the audience is deciding whether or not they want this in the world. So
that's true. That's true. I mean, honestly, and for me, I've learned that, because I've put out things and heard crickets.
yeah, sure.
And so, there have been times where I've put out things and it's sort of caught on too. And so when you have that experience of trying to put something out thinking everybody's going to love it and you hear crickets, you realize that, you start to really appreciate people when they actually are into what you create,
Oh, hell yeah. Hell
Um,
yeah. Absolutely.
and
No,
I
there's
think
no
that's
doubt
kind
about
of
it.
what this whole indie movement we've been building here is all
Yeah.
about.
Yeah, it's a community and I love it, and helping each other get to their goal. I think I'm at 35%. So I think I'm so close to 3 grand. So it's like, let's do it. It's really cool. It's cool.
Yeah,
Everyone's like really excited and sharing it. It's nice to see that.
totally. And I mean, I know coming from your perspective, it's like it's not going to be any less nerve wracking until finally, it's gone over the hump.
Yeah,
But man, I'm pretty confident. I think it will. I mean, you
me
got
too.
28 days left. You got a lot
Yeah,
of support and stuff.
it's
I
great,
think
man.
we'll get there.
I'm so thankful. I'm so fortunate that everyone's been so cool about it and saying nice things.
Yeah, totally. Let's see. Ryan Wynn is confirming that Twitter is down.
Oh, we drew General Gorn. Oh, I got to see that, Ryan. Damn, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, we gotta check that out. I'm
Oh,
looking
that's so
forward. I'm
cool.
sure the reveal will come at some point.
Oh man, badass.
Oh, they're talking about the New York Post article. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's politics happening today, as every day,
Yeah,
really, but
right. I was gonna say, when is there not?
let's see. Sorry, I'm just,
Yeah,
sometimes
do
I
your thing.
lose the part where, I posted the person's quote, and then I'm like, "Oh, I gotta take it down now," and I forget where it is. Um, yeah, I don't know. Let's see. Well, I'm curious. I don't know. Like, what is it like? I shouldn't say what is it like. I'm almost more like wanting to share a little bit, like, because I've had recently had the experience being somebody who tends to be the artist in
Mhm,
situation. I've had the recent experience of writing something and having another artist you know come back
right.
with pages and stuff, and I don't know about you, but that's a pretty darn cool experience.
Oh, it's awesome. Don't get me wrong. It is so cool. It's like when Ryan and all them were doing the prints, it was like Christmas morning when I woke up and I saw the email and I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, "This is sick."
Yeah, and
So,
then when you get pages back and stuff too, like
oh my god, it's unbelievable, especially when it's the way you want it.
yeah.
Or they thought of something you didn't think of. That's even better.
That's yeah, and that's the thing, like, I mean, us as artists, we're used to doing that work, and it's a lot of work, just to translate the
Oh god,
script
is it
to the
ever?
page.
Is it ever? Is it
And
ever?
to see it just kinda magically appear before your eyes,
Oh, like, I just finished, volume 3 of Blood Realm is done, and I know the 3rd issue is finally coming back from the printer. It's gonna arrive any day at Alterna, but, oh my god, I was like, "I signed on to do t 3 more of these things? 3 more volumes? You madman."
Yeah, yeah,
But, hey, it's, I'm thrilled that I have the opportunity and that the people are enjoying it, so
yeah, I mean,
it's killing
you're
me.
yeah, it's a lot of work, I know, but thank you for doing it because 'cause you're obviously inspiring a lot of people. I definitely dig it, and I
Oh,
know a
thank
lot
you,
of
man.
people do.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, so, I guess, bringing this stuff to fruition with the having the artists, it's kind of cool because they might make decisions that you wouldn't have even thought of. At least that's what I'm finding.
Mhm.
And having ways of rendering certain things that you wouldn't have thought of. But it is interesting too how you were saying, like, you can work the Marvel method with yourself, but it's a whole different story when you're trying to do it, with another artist. And I totally agree. Like, I write way more when I'm working with an artist because I want certain things to come across, you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah, you know what you want, you don't have to write it down all the time. You have unless there's a certain things that's specific. But when, that's why it was a transition for me because I was like, "Oh, I want this scene to look like this." I was like, "Well, I have to actually, like, explain this to him." So it was a learning process, but we got a great formula down, and we're in sync, and we're going through this book like crazy. The whole first about almost like I would say 75% of the book is almost done. So this thing
Wow,
is it's almost done and ready to go. So
that's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. We got a question in the chat for
Oh,
you.
hold on, Sarah, what's up?
Is Wirehead an augmented corpse with AI, or is it a living being, or just a robot with biological components?
It is the last one that you said. It is a robot with biological components. Very good.
Interesting.
7 on 7. I wonder if he reads my notes. He's hacking my computer. Yeah,
Uh-oh.
that's what Wirehead is.
Nice. Interesting. I can't wait to hear about the backstory. Like, I don't know. Is that going to be revealed a lot in this book, or are we
Yes.
going to have to wait for other?
No, don't worry. So my goal is to make every one of these stories a self-contained story.
Hmm.
So it's not going to be like, oh man, you know what I mean? Cheap cliffhanger. I mean, don't get me wrong. I still want you to feel a little uncomfortable at the end. Not everything is going to be tied neatly in a beautiful bow, and they're looking out into the sunset. But in terms of like answering questions that need to be answered, they will be answered in the 3 chapters.
Awesome. Is I'm looking at this cover too. Like, is that cover going to be released as a print? Because that's pretty rad too. As almost would be cool print.
I'd be down for it. Sure, we
That's an
could work.
amazing cover, by the way. Like,
Yeah, he killed it. Michael killed it. It's he nailed it. I was telling him what I wanted. I was giving him layout ideas, and then he took it and just boom. I sent me that. I was like, yes. And Jose Exposito colored it, and that's the
nice.
thing too. It's a limited palette, and I think that's what I like about horror is when it has that limited palette, not so
Mm,
bright and cheery. You know,
yeah,
you want to feel the dread.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Blast Beat Industries. Serious question: isn't the Marvel method a Stan Lee myth? I'm not sure that it ever really worked out like they said.
Oh
That's an
no, from
interesting
what I
question.
yeah, sure. From what I understand, uh, confirmed by Kirby and Stan Lee, that's how they worked because they were so pressed for time, and they were working on so many titles. So
Yeah.
Stan would give him notes of where he wanted things to go, who the characters were, and an idea of what they look like, how he envisioned it rather, and then Jack would go tell the story in the pictures, and Stan would put the words in after.
Hmm.
So they're both
I
kind of writing it in a weird way.
I could see that, in some ways, it could possibly be a little bit of a myth in that, Stanley has a way he says it, and Kirby has a way he talks about it,
Of
and
course, yeah.
and there's obviously been that kind of rivalry there as well. And I mean, sometimes you hear interviews from Kirby, and he's basically like, "Those are my
Oh,
books. I wrote these."
yeah.
He had nothing to do with them, almost like.
Right, right, right.
So, you know, maybe it is a myth, maybe not. I don't know. To me, I feel like, well, obviously Stan Lee wrote the dialogue afterwards,
He did.
so
He did,
there's
and
that.
that's very
And I
important.
feel like there was some kind of magic between the two that wasn't there when they were separate. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Right.
Something special.
I think that's the thing. The 2 of them are like, what do you call? They're like the Lennon and McCartney of comics. Their
Mm,
formula, their magic, whatever it was you wanna call it, Marvel method, whatever, it worked,
mm,
and they created magic.
totally. And I mean, obviously Stanley and Ditko did too.
Yeah,
So that's an interesting one
of
too,
course.
because they kind of both have similar rivalries kind of going on, but
Sure. Oh my, you have Ditko for sure.
totally. And you can almost see that a little bit in Wirehead, even with, like you said, almost like an Archie look, to the
Yeah.
characters. It's got that kind of friendly home like look, and
Yes.
then things happen.
Heads get popped.
um, and I'm assuming that's not the end of the gore in the graphic novel.
Right. Right.
Hi, I'm totally new to your channel, so I have a question for him. Like, how do we improve?
How do you
Ooh,
improve?
interesting.
Uh, you keep making and doing what you're doing. You look at other artists, you see what they're doing. It's people you admire. Well, I'm not sure if he wants to do writing or art. I'm not quite sure, but if it's art, I would draw and draw and draw. I would draw people at cafe shops. I'm at cafes, at shops, at in the park. Get comfortable drawing people. I think
Mm,
that's the most important thing. And draw your way, study other people, study the way they put down their line, and
mhm.
kind of like see which style fits you or what is closest to your voice.
Yeah,
Or how do
yeah, I
you
would
how do you
agree.
set up the cover?
One thing I've been contemplating a lot is, and it's also been reinforced by talking to Peter Smeddy. He gets kind of on this as well. Is getting addicted to making, and
Yeah.
I in in all confession, like,
Mhm.
I'm still not as much there as I'd like to be. I I I consume more than I create, and that is something that I don't like and I want to change.
Okay.
But I do, I think getting addicted to making is really good, because the thing is as you create, and you see this when people, are on a long-term comic project. As you create, you start to find your kind of shorthand and things like that, especially with comics. You start to find your style, you start to find the way you like to tell a story visually. You have a kind of a base, and then you start to experiment and stuff, and I feel like that's kind of when you grow. It's like you're moving, and because you're moving and making decisions and pushing forward as you do that, it's just natural to kind of progress, as opposed to playing around with it for a while and then taking a month off, and then playing around with it again, taking a couple months off, and kind of dabbling. I think you grow less in that way.
It's better than nothing, though.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that.
Mhm.
I mean, I've dabbled a lot, and I feel like I have grown. I just feel like the progress is slower than when
It's
you're
slow.
really
Yeah.
kind of hitting a lot of I don't know, productivity, I guess.
Sure. No, I get you.
And I'm sure you've experienced that as of
Oh, yeah.
late.
Forget it. Forget it, man. It's funny though. I haven't been drawing as much lately because I've been writing and promoting. So it's like when I have to
Mm.
get back into Blood Realm again, I'm gonna be like, "How do I do this? What do I do with this brush? What the hell is this thing?"
Yeah, yeah. I feel like your style though, like it must it's hard to say because it might be that it's deceptively like that is just deceptive because like to me, I look at your style and I'm like, that looks like it could be a quicker style than like a typical comic
Yeah.
book style. But I could be wrong because it's also there's a lot of design there.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's like, same thing with when people do kind of cartoony type of stuff, like, it looks like it
Just
could
as
be
much work.
easy, but it's not
Just as
easy.
much. No, it's not. It's not. It still takes me 15 hours a page, 10 to 15.
Oh,
Same
wow.
amount of time that anyone else would do on, like, a DC book. Is the design elements, the layouts, the thumbnails, the pencils, the inks. It gets a little bit quicker when you're in a groove and you did your homework. I think that's the
Mhm,
key thing, is that you get your layouts tight, or you get your layouts very close to where you want it, so you're not trying to figure things out on the page. Because once you start trying to figure things out on the page, you're gonna be like, "Oh, what the hell am I doing?" And it's a recipe for disaster. So
yeah,
all that prep work, it's like building a house. You got to have your blueprint and everything like that. It helps just so much as you're making your book.
yeah, wow, and so I am curious, because, your pages definitely are way more design heavy than
Yeah.
a lot of comics I read.
Mhm.
Is there like what is the process? And I know we're getting away from Wirehead a little bit, but
It's
what
okay.
is the process for getting that design right, you know?
Well, I'm very big. If people saw my layouts, it's just a bunch of shapes and people, but like blacked out. So I really try to get that relationship of negative space,
Mhm.
and blacks. I think it's really important. So, and I also think of a page as a whole. That is a couple little panels. Like, really think about how, when I'm designing this page, how are each panel working with each other? How are all the panels flowing? You know, when I step back and look at the whole page with all those panels, is it creating something that's pleasing to the eye? Is there a nice flow? I think that's the problem. Some people just focus on each panel individually, like separate pictures, but in reality, they're making a whole. And
Mhm.
that's where the design element comes in, and that's where I really harp on that big time with Blood Realm, because I think about, sometimes I don't even use panel borders, because I think about, all right, this element is going to guide the eye right into this section here, and then we're going to float over here to get that story element going. So
Mhm.
yeah, so it's all planning. That's what it is. It's a
Mhm.
lot of planning.
So is that something like where did that come from? Do you feel like you got that kind of understanding from maybe some schooling or some individual study, or how did that kind
Sure.
of come about?
Schooling, I did go finally to FIT.
Mhm.
My first school had a horrible art program, and I was kind of like left hung and dry, and I
Mhm.
had no idea what I was doing with art. So FIT in Manhattan really helped me hone my skills and taught me about business and contracts and how to protect yourself as an artist, which I feel like all fine art schools don't do. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
And also looking at other artists that responded to me. No, I didn't like to harp on trends. I always drew in a very strange way with silhouettes and a lot of line. So when I
Mhm.
saw the work of Frank Miller, I really responded to his work, because with Sin City, I was like, oh wow, this is a guy that draws like me. I draw with silhouettes and line work and black and whites. This is exactly what I do. Obviously it's different style. It still wasn't harping on him, but it was very different. But it was finding those type of artists. I think
Mhm.
the dangerous thing is to stick with a trend. You see it's something that's popular. A trend is exactly that. It's not going to last.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it'll pass. Um, and yeah, that's interesting. Now that you say that, you bring up Sin City, and I could definitely see how you have like similar styles. And so this is kind of how you were already drawing like this a long time ago, then I guess, huh?
And it wasn't exactly the way it was, but I was already kind of figuring things out, and I knew that the way I drew was very line heavy. very
Mm,
line heavy, very silhouette heavy. It's
mhm,
just it's the way my hand naturally moved on the paper, and I think that's what people don't realize is that they already have a style.
mm,
Everyone has a style already. It's just a matter of just allowing that to happen because what happens is we start to see what's popular or we see other artists and we think we need to draw like that. And it's almost like it's like when you're people who are left-handed, they kept whipping them in the Catholic school, like, no, write with your draw with your right. Yeah, but I make my line this way naturally. No, 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 don't do that. So that's
mhm,
why later on, you kind of like realizing that I don't have to draw the way, Spider-Man like the way Ryan Stegman does. I draw Spider-Man and that's my Spider-Man
mhm.
and that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like unlearning what you've learned and to be Yoda for a minute.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree because there's a certain part of your style that you just can't get away from, and I've noticed that because there have been times where I'm like, well, I feel like I want to look like these kinds of artists or something, so I would try to draw in that, and it wasn't coming out that way.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because I feel like sometimes there have been times where I didn't like what did come out.
Yeah.
So it's a little confusing because to me, there are times when I'm drawing and it kind of comes out Disney-esque, and I really don't want it to come out Disney-esque.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I mean, but if it's naturally doing that, that says
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. So I don't know, but I think I've learned it has to do with influence too. And I don't really know. I don't know the answer 100% to style, but I like what you said. I think that is interesting because there are times I've heard other artists say that too, where they're like, I have to become comfortable with the way that I draw, and it's just the way that I
Yes.
draw.
That's exactly it. It's just the way you make your mark on the paper. And I
Mhm,
used to think that the way I make my mark isn't the right mark, but no, it already is the right mark because there's an audience for that mark. So,
mhm,
an FIT for me, because the way I was taught in my other school, they were telling me not to draw like that. But
mhm,
FIT was like, no, draw like that. That's see, here's the thing. If you have a sketchbook, and everyone should have a sketchbook. I don't even
mhm,
care if you're a businessman or you work on Wall Street or you're a doctor. Everyone should draw in a sketchbook or just draw in general. It just helps you see things differently, and it's
mm,
it's fun. And if you're drawing something from your free time naturally in your sketchbook, that's it. The sketchbook can't lie. So when they saw that I was drawing horror but trying to do children's books, they were like, you're doing horror on your free time? That says something.
yeah.
If you're drawing things that haunt your dreams, you know, uh, in your sketchbook, then that means that's something you should do. So if you're doing Disney stuff, I'm not saying, I'm just saying in general, in
Mhm,
your sketchbook and you're trying to do something else, that means maybe you should go in this type of Disney-esque direction. You know,
yeah.
I first thing I do when I look at my students' work, I look at their sketchbooks. Like, all right, everyone, hand over your sketchbooks. No, like, no, 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 because it's like a diary. I'm like, let me see, let me see. And as I go through it, I'm like, okay, you like manga, don't you? But they wouldn't dare do that with their final pieces because they're told that manga or comic book is an art. So I
Mm.
was like, if you want to draw anime and manga, I want you to do some anime and manga. And then their pages explode. It's insane. So, yeah.
I wish you were my art teacher. Because I mean, this is what I've said this many times on this YouTube channel. Like, I'm like, I had some good, sort of good art teachers, and I learned a lot in art classes. But that whole thing of like, you're not supposed to draw like that, kind of
Oh,
down on illustration, down on comic book styles and manga. Like I've always said, I'm like, if I was an art teacher, I would say, yes, do your thing. And I'm going to
mhm,
show you how I can help you make the thing you want to do look even better by adding some perspective, adding some figure drawing,
exactly.
adding some gesture, and still do the thing you want to do. But now it's going to look amazing.
Yep. Yep. That's it. That's exactly it. Because, you know, first off, the whole view of illustration in fine art programs drives me off the wall. I can't take it. I can't listen to my colleagues sometimes. I literally just tell them you have no idea what you're talking about because you're hobbyists. That's what you all
Mm,
are. You're hobbyists. You're not working in the industry, and now you're crippling these students or artists because you're saying, "Oh, that's not real art." But meanwhile, if you do illustration, that covers comics, that covers editorial, that covers even what do you call the guys who do movies when the oh
Oh,
god,
storyboarding. Yeah.
storyboarding, all
Yeah.
that stuff. It's we live in an era where you don't just do one thing anymore.
Mm,
You do the umbrella. Like I've done a little concept art for video games.
mm,
So it leads to other areas. So
yeah.
illustration is a wonderful, wonderful uh, uh, area
Yeah.
in art. The fine arts people are just too brain dead to realize it.
Oh yeah, I mean it's insane, and when you really think about it, when you really understand what it takes to especially making comics, like there is so much skill in illustration. It's
Forget it.
that you'll never even come close to in fine art.
No,
I
no,
mean, it's insane, and I'm not
yeah,
saying fine art is bad.
no.
I love a lot of fine art, but you're actually missing out on a lot of techniques and skills that could really
Oh
I don't
yeah, it's
it amazes
archaic.
all
Yeah.
the things I've had to learn just to make not even great comics.
Right, exactly. And the thing is too, and this is the great thing about, I guess the weird. I mean, that's the thing about social media. There's a good thing and there's a bad thing. You can reach the audience that you need easier. You know, it's
Mhm,
hard, still hard to find them, but it's easier to reach them in today's time. And you
mhm,
don't even have to be the best. You don't have to be Jim Lee.
mm,
As long as you tell a decent story and you make your line the way you make your line, someone's going to be like, "That's cool." You
mhm.
know, that's
Yeah,
it. Someone's gonna dig it.
yeah. I mean,
Someone's gonna dig it.
I just had 2 days ago, I had Mandy Summers on, and I never really looked that far into her work until obviously I did the show,
Mhm,
and, I was looking at her first thing, and I mean, she literally just started making comics, like, a little over a year ago. Her
mhm.
first comic was derived from, stories she told her daughter, at bedtime that
Oh,
she just
nice.
kinda made up. And then she decided to make she found out about, things that were going on in IndieGoGo, and she's like, "I'm gonna make a comic." So she made a comic. She wasn't even an artist, like,
That's
really.
it.
She kinda doodled here and there, but she did the drawing, she did the writing. The drawing is, it's what you would expect somebody who doesn't really draw to draw, but it had storytelling, it had things
Mhm.
going on, and she raised $11,000 or so on Indiegogo
Yeah,
for the project,
exactly.
you know?
There you go. Look, we all can't draw like EVS. You know what I
Right.
mean? We can't.
Yep.
But, we can still draw our way
Mhm.
and get an audience. That's the thing.
Totally.
You don't have to draw like him or Jim Lee.
Cool. So we've got at least one question, maybe a few more.
Sure. Yeah.
We're gonna jump back into this real quick, and let's see. Is it there? Is it not? Oh, here we go. There we go. We're gonna jump back into this real quick, and just check in. Once
Mhm.
again, I'm gonna post the link right now, actually. And again, it is in the description. Um, but go check that out. Get yourself some awesome slasher. I keep saying thrasher. Get some awesome cybernetic slasher stuff. I mean, this thing looks so cool. I can't
Thanks,
wait
man.
to get mine. What's that?
I said, "Thanks, man. I appreciate." Oh, wait. Oh, I just got it. Oh, thanks, man. You backed it.
Yes, I
Oh.
was trying. I was trying to do it without disturbing the show, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No, I saw the email. I just saw the email.
yeah. So
Thank you
I
so much,
backed it.
man.
You guys should back it. No problem, man. You guys should back it. I mean, check this thing out. I can't see any reason why you wouldn't want this unless you just totally 100% despise horror. Um,
Thank you,
it's
man. I
just
really appreciate the support.
it's just really I mean, anytime, man, you're obviously talented at what you do, and you got a cool artist who's definitely talented. That's so cool, like that he was a student of
Yeah.
yours, and
He was the
it's
hardest
just so
working one.
neat. What's that?
He was the hardest working one. He
Yeah.
wanted it, and We did private lessons. You know, he was like, "Listen, I had a horrible art education. Please," he was like, "I want to make comics. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to learn." And I was like, "All right." I was like, but it was like, "Are you ready?" Because Jack Kirby said, "Comics will break your heart. Are you ready for it?" And he was like, "I'm ready." And worked him, man. And next thing you know, he's doing these pages. And
I know.
but
Just
it took
looking
years.
at the car there, it's like
Oh my
I
god.
don't know many artists that can draw a car like that. Like
Oh, he his expressions, his page design, because that's the thing. Like looking at that page right there, you want to take into account how the whole page is a design, not
Mhm.
singular panels. And like you have the Z formation, you know, from the
Yeah.
left to the right with the car, and you have all those panels, those inset panels of the character's expressions. This is one of
Mhm.
my favorite pages that he did, because
Yeah.
it's just so. And Wes Loker is doing the what's it called, the letters before he kind of
Mm,
like cools down and starts doing his own projects.
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's so cool. This is gonna be good.
can't wait.
So,
And it's
yeah,
gonna be 80
definitely.
pages too, 80
How
pages.
many?
80.
Wow.
So it's not gonna be a thin little book. It's gonna be an 80 pager, probably a little bit over, 'cause I think I may include I was talking to Peter, I was like, "Should I include that short story I did in that
Mm,
universe and make it look like it was on a typewriter?" He was like, "I think that would
mhm.
be awesome." So I think I'm
Cool.
gonna do that. It's like a little bit of a prequel, so I think I may
Nice.
include that in the back.
So I'm just curious. This is a weird question because it really kind of comes out of left field, but I
Go
just
for it.
read last night I read the first Earthworm Jim book. And I was just
Mhm.
interested about the amount of time it took. Like, first of all, the amount of time it took to make the book, obviously, but I mean he's actually really fast anyways, but not only that, but just like in the story, like the story takes place within like a 8 hour, or I don't know, it's probably like 11 hour time period, but it's
Yeah,
this whole like epic story. I'm just curious how much time in the story does this one take place, if
the
you
whole
want
th
to reveal it. You don't have
no,
to reveal
I'll do it.
it.
It's one night in the woods.
Nice.
It's one night.
Those
That's all it is.
There's a lot of horror stories like that, and I think that
Yeah,
it's a great format.
it is one night. It's one horrific night in these woods in the Pocono Mountains.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the reason I chose the Poconos is because my grandparents used to live there, so we would go up and, you know, during the winter and during the autumn season, the fall the autumn season,
Mhm.
the fall season, and it was just so damn creepy going up those, you know, once you get into the more rural areas, because they lived in like when the further you drove, there's no more street lights, you know, and it
Mhm.
was so creepy being in my parents' car, and I'd turn back and I would just see blackness. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be wild if some freaking hulking thing just stepped out of that, you know, because it would come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So one of those fears is implemented, as you could see, and well, as we saw previously, you know, when
Yep.
he's coming to the car. That was always a fear of mine.
I mean, I always those are great imagery for a comic or a movie. But whenever I'm in a situation where it's like dark and I'm alone and it's quiet and maybe I'm in a house by myself or something like that,
Right.
and when those images come into my mind at that point, I'm not too fond of those images. As much as I know, like, the truth, the reality, no monster's gonna come and get me, I can't help but, like, I
Right,
gotta
right.
turn a light on, like, as soon as possible.
I know. I know. I know. Oh
It's
my god.
crazy.
It's so true. Wow, we're only 100, we're actually technically 98 away from 3,000. Oh my god.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Let's make it
incredible.
happen, people. I know you guys
Yeah.
can do it. Yeah. This is gonna be awesome when it gets there.
I can't
It
wait.
already is. Ariana has a question. Is it
Sure.
wrong to take a little break from your big graphic novel to make some mini comics?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I'm taking a big break from my big epic saga, which is Blood Realm, and I'm doing this smaller uh horror title. So you have to.
Mm,
It's healthy for the brain. I would go
mm.
nuts because I got to a boiling point with Blood Realm. I was just like, if I look at one more page of Blood Realm, I'm gonna go nuts.
It's gonna make
You
your
have
blood
to.
boil.
It's gonna make my blood boil. Exactly. Yeah, it's good to exercise the brain into other things,
And
so
this is
you
coming
have
from
to.
a teacher too, so that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah, you really have to. Even look, even, what's his name? Lewis no, who's the one who did Charles Dickens. He wrote A
Mm,
Christmas Carol.
mm,
He was notorious for taking long, long walks.
mm,
Long walks. He had to step away from what he was doing, and he carried a little notepad, and he would write ideas for other stories while he was
mm,
working on Christmas Carol because he needed to step away and walk, and he would take long walks around his neighborhood
mm,
constantly. There's something about that monotonous, monotonous kind of movement, the
mhm.
repetition of walking and being outside away from your project. So taking breaks and maybe just jotting down other ideas is totally fine.
So I'm curious, since we're kind of talking about process and kind of workflow a little bit here, I am
Mhm.
curious when, and again, it's going back to blood realm. I can't help it. I'm kind of an artist first, but even though I'm becoming a writer first to a certain degree. But that being said, you say you work on these projects for or these pages for like 10, 15 hours maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, what is that like? Like, I've never been able to make myself work even like work on art for even 8 hours at a time,
It's rough, especially when you have a deadline. When you have a
yeah.
deadline, it's a whole nother ball game, because you have to there's a lot of things riding on it. You have a printing deadline. You have to
Hmm.
I mean, I do everything in the book, so it's a little bit more frustrating because I know it's all on me and it's my fault if it doesn't get done.
Yeah.
It's like I can't blame an inker, or I can't blame a colorist, or I can't blame a letterer. Oh, this is all
Right.
your fault. But it's like, damn, I have to get this done. So you got to stay motivated. And I do it in multiple ways. Music is big for me. And
Hmm.
for music, I mean movie soundtracks and podcasts. I love listening to that stuff. Um, I love to listen to game reviews in the
Hmm.
back. I love that stuff when people break down games or the history of video games. I'm a big gamer, so I like that stuff. But you have to have something,
Yeah.
to keep you inspired. If I'm really having a writer's block and I don't feel like drawing, I'll contact a friend. I'll be like, okay, listen, what are you watching? What's really cool? He's a musician. I'll say, you have any albums you can recommend?
Yeah.
Just so I can escape in somebody else's artistic vision. It's
Yeah.
important to do that. You know,
Interesting. That's a interesting way to look at it. And I notice for me, when I do go for I notice sometimes the longest periods of time I go drawing is when I have these kind of background hangouts sometimes with friends, with other art friends usually, and we just sit there and chat, and while we're chatting we're drawing, and
yeah,
it always by the end you're like, holy crap, like either I finished this or like I'm so much closer, and all the parts where I would normally be struggling through I didn't even pay attention to, but I got it
yeah.
done.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Look, there's always gonna be that pain period, but
Yeah.
through pain comes beauty.
True, true.
Yeah.
Oh,
Zachary there says that, oh, yeah, worldwide shipping. Yeah, I ship worldwide,
awesome.
the IndieGoGo. Yeah, so thank you. He said
Awesome.
he's interested in backing it. I don't know
Cool.
why anyone wouldn't. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't either.
Worldwide shipping.
Well, it's expensive.
It's very expensive. I know, but it is on the backer, so but
Yeah.
still, maybe I
True,
don't wanna go
true.
through the hassle of writing the, customs form.
Yeah. Yeah. So just a little bit more on workflow.
Sure, sure.
The I'm just curious because you said obviously you're a teacher.
Right.
Do you are you able to do this kind of on a somewhat full-time basis, or
Which?
or
The comics or the teaching?
making comics?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, whether it's part-time or full-time, no matter what, it's full-time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like it's regardless. So, I feel like there is no real part-time in comics. It's because it just consumes everything. But, yeah,
yeah.
I work as a teacher in 2 colleges, and, the comics is also just as much full-time. to be perfectly honest. So
Because I'm
it's
just trying, because you're saying like 10 to 15-hour pages,
oh,
and
dude,
you've
yeah.
gotten so much done. So I'm like, if you have like a full-time day job, like
Oh,
how?
I'm
Please
up.
tell me the secret.
It's I'm up very late. The fortunate thing is that my classes are some of them are night classes. So it allows me time to stay up late and get up early to work on the stuff. So my classes that I teach are generally around 6 to 3. I'm sorry, 6 to 9 or like sometimes 1 to 4, stuff
Mhm.
like that. So,
Got it.
yeah, and so it's that block there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely give you props because I know how hard it is even to do what I do. So,
A lot of work, and that's the thing too, it's like it drives me crazy because people have no idea how much work goes into making comics,
Mhm.
especially when you're doing all of it. I mean, sometimes I'll be honest, that's why I had gotten to a point where I was like, "I need to work on something else," because I don't know how I did 3 volumes of Blood Realm. Whoever that person was, he was a madman because I don't know if I wanna do that, but I'm going to, obviously, but, like, that's where I was at. I was like, "What? How did I do this? This is crazy."
It is crazy. Let's see if we have any other questions.
It's
Okay,
like
we got
Jason
another.
Brubaker, man. That guy does 1,000 page like omnibus. That guy's a machine.
Yeah, yeah. And again, I look at his style and I'm like, okay, that generally looks like it lends to maybe quicker work, but again, I think it's deceptive. And now when I'm seeing Phobos, oh, that's another one that's like a horror comic that's out right now.
Yes, it
Like
is. Now I wanna back that. It looks great.
that book, I mean, I thought his stuff was good before. This is like a whole other
I
level.
love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I'm like, I can't wait for that book. And I have the original Phobos signed here, like,
Wow, that's
and
cool.
I only have it because somebody sent me a bunch of indie comics one time, and I didn't even know barely what it was. But looking back, I'm like, oh, cool, this is really cool. I have this, but it's a whole different thing. Like,
Yeah.
it's it's just, I mean, it's just a whole different thing. You could tell he was in a different place when he was making those. Um, but anyways, Phobos looks absolutely amazing.
It really does.
Yuki Gondler says, Marshall, I have a question for Robert, and it's a big one. I'm
Oh,
good.
boy.
um, I'm not. I'm good. Well, I'm not good, but I'm okay with drawing characters, but not backgrounds. So, how do I improve on backgrounds? That's like the question of the world. But hey, there's a
Yeah.
teacher here. Maybe he'll be
Yeah,
able to help.
sure. I would practice with smaller settings first. I wouldn't go to crazy extravagant things if you're not familiar with backgrounds. I don't know how well you know perspective, but if you really want to practice perspective and settings and stuff like that, look up pictures of like a courthouse inside, like when they're doing like the jury and everything like that, and you have the judge. Like you have a lot of different perspectives and angles you can practice. It's really hard. But I would start simple and less is more. You want to suggest the background, things that are really important. Sometimes you don't need to make your backgrounds too incredibly lavish. Like when you look at Blood Realm, I just hint the most important things to set mood and tone. But it's hard for me because I don't know what your work is like and what your scenes are like. But I would practice on smaller scale stuff first.
Yeah, interesting. That's a question. That's something I need to get better at as well. And I mean, I know the basics of perspective, but I rarely use them.
Oh yeah. Look, I don't either. I don't either. I just understand that I need to as long as you have foreshortening, and
Mhm.
foreground and background and the depth. I don't use those angles and the all that stuff. I know where my point is, and roughly everything will follow to that little point. But I don't like things to look so structured. That's just
Yeah,
that's how I draw.
yeah, yeah. I'm kind of in that same realm as well. I definitely um, prefer like design and gesture
Yes.
and
Yeah.
expressiveness over correctness.
Absolutely, yeah, and I also go to cafes draw the backgrounds. I see. Oh, like Peter Retro says, draw from life. I completely agree with that.
Mhm.
The way I got better with backgrounds was that I would go to Starbucks and draw. I would draw the people in the background, see the relationship of the scale of the room to them. I would go to Central Park because I'm in New York City. Um, I'm in one of those boroughs, and I would draw the scenery, draw the people, and that's the really a good way to do it. Is draw
Mm.
nothing beats drawing from life. Sometimes I need to do that to like refresh. It's almost like stretching before a game for
Yeah.
artists. Getting those hands stretched and like ready to go.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you want to warm up for making comics or whatever you're doing, like just do a couple pages full of gestures or something, like it'll get you there.
Yeah.
um Mindfully stoic question, is it better to have a bunch of mini individual IPs or one big IP series you can focus on for your whole career? I've been fighting with myself of what would be more fruitful for my career.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Pick one. So, which one are you most excited about? You could always return to the others. Make a list and start trying to figure out which one you're most excited about, which one means more to you, and start docking them off. Okay, this one. All right, now it's between these three. All right, dock that one off. Now it's between these two. Because, excuse me, you want to be very passionate about the project you're going to choose because it's going to consume your life. It's going to consume everything, even your sleep. When you're with friends, when you're on vacation, you're always going to be thinking about it. So make sure it's something that you're really excited about and you're passionate about, because all of that is going to come through in your work and also uh, to the reader as well, the audience, because
Mm,
audience can tell when you're having fun. So I would I would definitely pick something that you're very passionate about for sure. So, and you could go to the other smaller IPs, but focus on one and build it from there.
mhm,
Who knows? I had different little ideas first, and then I just said, why am I separating this from Blood Realm? What if I just did this story and put it in the Blood Realm universe, and
mhm.
then it just expands that universe.
Yeah, yeah. I think about, there's a lot of people who have done this, but I think, I had Ryan Wynn on, not too long ago. I
Who?
think it was like last week. What's that?
I said,
Who?
who? Ryan? Who?
You probably never heard of him, but, um
This guy
but
in the chat.
yeah. And, that's the thing that really I love. One of the many things I really love about, Gods and Gears is it is just the type of IP that lends to, like, never-ending ideas and never-ending iterations and, like,
That's how Blood
stories.
Realm is too. Yeah, Ryan and I are very much we're creating a two. Well, I don't know what the universe I. We're creating universes,
Mhm,
and you build on it with smaller stories. And we talked before, and we said how the oh god, I'm drawing a blank. Shame on me. Chris Claremont, who did the Phoenix Saga and all that
mhm.
stuff. I was just building, slowly building upon this universe, so it got bigger and bigger and bigger. Mentioning this character in the beginning on the side, and then all of a sudden that character becomes a main villain later on. So all those little things really just expand it.
Yeah, totally. And then we have another comment from Blastby Industries. This is a crazy one. I like what Stephen King said on writing. If you're not writing at least 6 hours per day, then you're not serious. Same thing applies to drawing.
Yeah,
That's a tough saying right there.
I guess you can like translate that in a weird way, but like I mean, 6 hours. I know what he means. I know what he
Mhm,
means because I guess also the argument could say if you're actually clocking the amount of time you're doing, then that's also wrong. Because I never clock how much time. I just
mhm.
do it.
Yeah,
So
interesting.
I don't know. Right with universe, I all right. I had a brain fart. Universes
I don't know. I like Universe
sounds
Eye.
cooler.
Yeah. Oh
Sounds more
goodness.
epic.
Totally. Zachary, I wish I could draw. It would be so much cheaper to get my comic drawn. I
True.
only draw very basic scenes with basic anatomy, figures for visual and panel layouts purposes.
Yes.
Yes, but also time is money.
Yes, it is.
And, is it really cheaper? That's the question. Because honestly, being an artist who's made comics and also a writer who's made comics, um, I'm starting to think that maybe my efforts are better used in the writing phase, you know,
Yeah,
um, to
yeah.
make more progress. I don't know.
I'm gonna be perfectly honest. I think I'm going to so once Blood Realm's done, I'm gonna take a break from making comics and write comics. I'm still gonna
Mm,
make comics, but I'm gonna because like doing everything is really just I give people so much more credit. I give Frank Miller a lot more credit. It's Jason Brubaker. I give a lot
mhm,
more credit. It is a tremendous endeavor to do everything. It really
mhm.
is. And but I'm gonna come back to it, of course. I say this now and then things could change, but
Well, there's something to like, you know, a single vision comic is a really special thing, and it is a really cool thing.
yeah,
And I feel like it's something we all kind of dream of. Well, maybe not all. I mean, I'm probably projecting.
I
I
know what
kind
you
of
mean.
dream of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody feels that way. But at the same time, same thing. I've done everything on I've done when I made my one of my hip hop albums, I did everything. I did the beats, I did the rhymes, I did recording, I did everything.
Mhm.
And it was really hard. And when I've done most of my comics, I've done everything. And those are short comics, mini comics and anthologies. And as of recently, I've started doing more collaborative efforts, and it is just world of difference.
Oh, yeah.
it
Oh, yeah.
it's there's just it's not it's and I'm not even talking about the actual work. I'm talking about like the psychological toll it takes to do everything. Like
Yeah.
it's maybe not
Telling me.
healthy, you know what I mean? Like
You're telling me. I'm already there, man. I cracked a while ago. I've been cracked. It's 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 an emotional, it's a mental, toll that
it's
it
like
takes.
self-abuse.
It is self-abuse, but I love it, and that's what's so sick and twisted. You have to love it to endure the abuse, and I think that's really the core of it. You have to
Yeah.
love this. This is if you have to love comics to make it. I don't mean like just, "Oh, no, I love comics." No, like, you have to have a torturous love affair with
Well,
comics.
yeah, it has to be like I hate to say it, but like a drug addiction, or another
Yes.
way that is less than that is it has to be something that you can't not do,
Yep.
because that's exactly what happened to me. There was a time where I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I made a couple mini comics and I second guessed myself. I'm like, do I really want to do this? This is really hard. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then, I didn't do it for like somewhere around a year, and I found myself back making comics. I can't not do it. Like it's just
Yeah.
I can't.
And it's also good to work at your own pace. I think that's the thing too, is that I think figuring out your own pace is very important to your progress. I think the problem is that people see like, oh well, I have to do this, like Stephen King's thing, saying you got to do 6 hours a day. You don't really have to. You know what I mean? You
Yeah.
do what works for you because at the end of the day, it still should be fun. Okay.
Yeah.
We're making comics because it's fun. Does it get stressful? Yeah, especially when you're published and you have an audience and you have to get things done by a deadline. Yeah. Still you have to have fun. I mean, it's going to get stressful rather, but you still have to have fun at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. I think that's how Dave Sim lost his mind, Blast Beat says. Interesting.
I get it. I get it.
Mindfully Stoic has a question. Is it dangerous to create something too big to handle where it falls on its legs because of the amount of maintenance it would take to keep that one story good? Disney is having that very problem.
Well, I'm not sure what he means with Disney, maybe with Star Wars, I guess, but I mean,
Hmm.
I would say yes, because something that I see very common with students of mine is that they have this grand, massive, epic saga
Mhm.
that they haven't even started yet. It's all in their head, and then this character is going to go there, and that character is going to come back in issue 100, and then this character is going to have a child, and that child's going to be the spin-off, and it goes on and on and on, and it gets so crazy. And then when they actually go to do it, what happens is they get so overwhelmed because they're like, this is going to take me my lifetime to do this.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to make anything. I tell them, listen, give me a slice of life in this universe. Forget your saga. I don't care about your saga. I don't want to hear it. Show me 5 pages. That's what you're limited to. Give me a 5-page story in this universe. And you know what happens? It doesn't become as overwhelming anymore because now, oh, you know what? I like this. This is a self-contained little story in this world. And then you kind of add to it that way. 5 pages. 5 pages. Hey, you know what? 10 pages. 10 pages. You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
build that way gradually. People immediately start with this massive, oh, the saga that's gonna turn the world upside down all the time.
Yeah.
And they don't start with that self-contained story. Blood Realm started as a fully little self-contained story that I really didn't have an intention of continuing. I had ideas that I would do later, but when I was creating Blood Realm first, the first volume, it was one and done. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Now I can build on this. And now I'm building, and now I'm building, and now I'm cutting it to 6 volumes, and it's done.
There you go.
It gets overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, that's I think that's good advice. And you know, I always think of you know, Tolkien, you know,
It took his whole lifetime to do that.
yeah, but he started with The Hobbit, you
Hobbit.
know.
Very good. Yeah.
And
He
The
built
Lord
from
of the
there.
Rings was not a thing yet, you know.
Not even a thought. It wasn't even a thought. It was a story that he would tell his kids, and he took that and he built on it.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. He had the foundation. You need the foundation story first. Otherwise, you're not going to know where to start. For me, because I'm addicted. I'm addicted to sadomasochist. There you go. Then you're good. Welcome. You're going to feel right at home, Stinch. Right at home.
Totally. And similar to that is where did it go? This thing skips. Similar to that is Peter Palmiotti. I'm as balanced a personality as Batman.
You know, aren't we all?
So comics is an unhealthy habit, I guess. Let's see. So yeah, just trying to see if there's any questions. Not so much. So you know, once again, I mean, you guys gotta check it out. Wirehead. It's the thing. It's the thing you need to get involved with here.
Thanks, man. Thank you.
You know, I don't know. We got to make this happen, and I think it won't be long before you're at the 3,000 mark, and you're gonna be getting there. I think this thing's really cool. I can't wait to get mine.
I appreciate it. I'm having so much fun with this story, and Michael's having a blast drawing it. He has a huge affinity for horror as well, so we're both horror nuts, and we're right at home in this, and we're having a blast. And I sent him chapter 2 rather, and you know, I said, "You have any comments?" And he told me nothing. Just you're sick. This is a crazy sick story, and I was like, "Yes, excellent."
That's awesome.
Yeah, we're having
when he first came to you as a student, was this the type of stuff he was drawing, or was it other stuff? Or
No, he was doing all superhero stuff. This is, and
okay.
this, I'll tell you this, I've been working with him for years. This is the best work he's done. His improvement, he was trying, you know, because he was like, oh, well, I have to do Spider-Man. So he's trying to do a lot of superhero stuff. And his stuff was very like, you know, paneled out. He wouldn't take the risk of doing what he did with this panel, like we discussed before, you know, and and now he's grown to this point where there's so much dynamism. There's his blacks, you know, his use of blacks popping figures forward, and everything just really pops. Where that's why I agree with Peter. I was like, you don't need the color. You know, look at all the texture in the leaves there.
Yeah.
So,
There's definitely and obviously he's learned, you know, some design. Even with this one panel here, it's like, you know, it's on the angle. You got the forest, which, you know, and the textures, and then, you know, there's that opening where you got the church, it looks like, or a school or something, and
like a mansion.
you know, okay, so it's a mansion, and it's like, it's perfectly like framed with the trees and stuff in the foreground and the
Exactly.
background. Like it's all there. It's good
Mhm.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and his dinosaur, yeah, Simon 7, his dinosaur work is unbelievable. He loves
Mm.
dinosaurs. He's a dinosaur nut. He goes to no, I'm sorry, archaeological, diggings in Jersey. He drives there and he
Oh
comes
wow.
home with all these dinosaur bones. It's
Wow.
like because you get to pick whatever you find. You get to keep whatever you find, rather. So it's
Wow.
really funny.
Him and Frankie Washington should do a collaboration.
Oh, it'd be nuts. That would be nuts. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Simon 7, we need Wirehead to battle some raptors. That would be awesome. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Noted.
See what you did there, pal. You
Yep.
planted it.
Yeah, he planted it.
Oh
Um,
my
we
god,
we
that's a
got
great idea. I need to write
we you gotta write it down. Write it down. Hurry up.
I can't even find my pad. I use my sketchbooks. I think it's over there somewhere. Alright. I'm not gonna
All
forget. Not gonna forget.
right. Sew it in there. All right, we got one last question here.
Sure.
Zachary says, I know not all writers like talking about inspiration, but where did your inspiration come from or for Wirehead? I know from personal experience this can have funny or odd answers.
Okay. So the inspiration for Wirehead was obviously slasher films, like Jason and stuff like that from Friday the 13th. But, and I mentioned this before in other streams, it was the idea that it was a robotic killer that didn't feel pain. And that was really key because when it's a machine like in T800, the T800 in Terminator, you can't bite its arm, you can't gouge out its eyes, you can't do all that crazy stuff to make it pull back. Like when an alligator is biting on your hand, they tell you to put your do something to its eye because then it'll let go. Everything it'll wince and it'll shoot off. You can't do that to a robot.
Hmm.
It's not going to feel that. There's no pain receptors. So just like that scene, it's going to keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing till your head pops.
Hmm.
That's the vibe. That's the terror I wanted people to feel with Wirehead because it looks like it's human, but really it's not. It doesn't feel and it has no emotion and it doesn't feel pain. So therefore it's capable of doing absolutely terrible things to you because of that. So and what's really creepy about Wirehead is that, and this isn't quite a spoiler, but we learn very early by the way he speaks that he sounds as if he was designed to serve and to help. So
Hmm.
is he an AI gone wrong? Is there something there? We'll find out. But as he's squeezing your head and squeezing and squeezing and squeezing, he's telling you, please remain calm.
Oh man, that's great.
Yeah.
I love
So
it.
so that was the inspiration for Wirehead.
Wow. Okay. Well, with that, once again, let people know where they can find you, and you guys know where you can obviously get some of this awesomeness.
Thanks, man. You could find me on Twitter and Instagram at Geronimo Draws and my YouTube channel, Geronimo Draws, where I do fun playthroughs of horror games. I interview other creators. I also do little history lectures on some of my favorite comic book covers in history. And I also have a little bit of a podcast that I do there, and also an audio comic of Blood Realm if you like to listen to it with sound effects.
Oh, yeah, that thing is great.
Thank you.
Definitely check that out, I would say. Cool. Awesome. Awesome. And again, I just put the link in there again. It's in the description as well.
Thank you, man.
You guys rock in the chat. Thank you for hanging out with us and all the awesome questions and stuff. You
Yeah, it was great.
helped me do
They
the
were great.
episode.
Yeah.
um, and we'll let Robert go. Hopefully he'll remember that cool idea.
Oh my god, that's right. Yes, see? Okay. I need to, just jam it on my hand because I love it.
There you go.
Yeah,
Just scratch it in blood.
exactly. Oh,
All
Blast Beats
right.
is very nice. You are a big inspiration. Thank you for being you. I really appreciate that, Blast Beat. Thank you for being a fan.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys all rock. Thank you once again, and we
Oh,
will
Ash
talk.
and Jackal. Sorry, let me say hi to Ash and Jackal. I didn't see him before.
Hey, what's up?
What's up,
All the
brother?
people who didn't talk, thank you as well for watching and checking stuff out for sure.
Of course.
Um, and yeah, so you guys all rock, and next time we'll talk to you next time.
Take care, everyone.